Is ChatGPT about to threaten financial analysts? Here's a tweet seen earlier from Rowan Chong, who is in the AI space. Says, check this out. This new AI tool is ChatGPT for finance. It's trained on earnings, call transcripts, quarterly annual reports, 13 Fs, investment books, and granular business KPIs. That's key performance indicators with sources. There's a homepage, finance, all right, the FinChat.io is the ChatGPT for finance using AI. It generates answers to questions about public companies and investors to generate accurate answers, and it also provides reasoning and sources and data. And we have a financial analyst and MD and CEO with us, so we're going to ask her what she thinks. Here's a demonstration of the AI in action, where it's actually analyzing, particularly, it looks like, yeah, there it is in action right now, looking at Disney's subscribers, analyzing Disney Plus. Should we be scared? All right, fuel subsidies, another scary topic. The National Economic Council in Nigeria Thursday in Abuja has decided that the gasoline subsidy, should not be removed. That's fuel, PMS, as originally anticipated for June 2023. It was revealed to State House reporters by Zainab Ahmed, Minister of Finance, Budget and National Planning, just after the final council meeting. Sanyade Okoli, CEO of African Advisory, joins us to discuss further. Good morning, and you're welcome. Good to see you again. Let's start with fuel subsidies. What do you make of this latest reversal?
Okay, so my understanding of what they said was that it would not be removed by the current administration.
That's right.
As opposed to it would not be removed by the 30th of June. I think what I read into what they were saying is that they would continue to work on the removal, but they will leave it to the next government to actually implement. And bear in mind that inauguration is the 29th of May.
Yeah.
I'm just hearing them saying we're not going to try and do that in the next month and a day.
Right, but sounds pretty convenient. They promised to do this last year. They reversed course, the same Minister of Finance. Doesn't this look like they're still kicking the can down the road and pushing it off to the new guy that's coming into office?
You can be well forgiven for thinking that they have decided not to bite the bullet themselves and leave it to somebody else to do. But truth be said, I think everybody accepts that it needs to happen.
Okay.
Not least, we can't afford it.
Okay.
You know, if you look at our budget for 2023, they've only budgeted for it for the first 6 months up to the 30th of June. So part of this trigger date of 30th of June is actually a legal one, in that there isn't a budget for it thereafter. And then also the Petroleum Industry Act envisages that it does have to be removed by the 30th of June. But step back, they've budgeted for it for 6 months. But yet, and not for the rest of the year, yet our budget deficit is almost the same as our projected revenues.
Right.
And if you look at the first 6 months on the budget, on what they were planning to spend on debt service, which is not negotiable, and fuel subsidy, is about 127% of the forecasted revenue for the first 6 months.
Gargantuan.
That means you haven't paid salaries, you haven't done anything else, and more than your revenue has been gulped by just those two expense items.
Right.
And so it has to go, but I know that it's something that needs to be done. You need to think it through.
Right.
And you need to plan for it. I know some people are concerned over the impact on the poor. So the $800 million with the World Bank. So my understanding is part of that is, the necessary palliatives for the poor. But let's step back. To what extent do the poor actually enjoy these subsidies?
Right.
The bottom 40% of society buys 3% of the petrol. So they're not the ones who are really getting the benefit today. It's you and I.
Right. Well, you're top 1%.
I beg your pardon.
I'm much lower.
And then outside Lagos, Abuja, Port Harcourt, you already find that they're not buying petrol at
the 185.
Yes.
Right.
So when people, you shout about inflation, etc., I'm not trying to play down and say that there won't be inflation, but let's realize that some of that inflationary impact is already baked into the numbers that we're seeing today.
Wema Bank held a webinar yesterday. They were talking about this particular topic, and people from, for instance, Benue State said they were paying about 260. Somebody in Anambra said they were paying 220. So that, they're paying much higher. But I mean, if someone was to say, well, the U.S. subsidizes agricultural products, and so does the UK, and so on and so forth, what's your response to the argument that you've got to have some kind of shield for the folks at the lower rung at some point?
I will go back to the statistics I started with in terms of your budget deficit and how you plan and how you're planning to fund your budget deficit. You're planning to borrow, but remember that your debt service is already gulping.
Very high.
So
your back's against the wall.
You can't afford it.
Right.
That's the bottom line, and it has an impact not just on your cost, but then for as long as you're having it, the amount of FX that you're having coming in, because essentially it's the fuel subsidy is coming in at the top line. So it's net FX that comes into the government coffers. So it has a myriad of effect, and we've also got to say, what else can government be using this money for?
Right.
If you look year after year, they budget a certain amount for capital expenditure.
Right.
And it's one of the first things that gets slashed. If you don't make the necessary expenditure in infrastructure, etc., you're never going to have the base to grow. Do we want to what are the alternatives?
Right.
Do we want to remain on this slow growth trajectory? I don't want it.
Do you support yanking it off one time or removing it in phases? There's still a cost if you remove it in phases, because
I wouldn't have used the word yank.
Okay.
I think I would support a definitive move.
Right.
As I said, not least because you're bleeding.
Right. Well, look, historically, the incoming president, he said he's going to, in fact, I think all the candidates, the top four.
I think that was one thing that everybody was agreed on.
Yeah, but they always say that, and then you get in there, and does he have the, we're not getting into politics here, forgive me, but you need to come in with some capital, some political capital to be able to absorb the impact of such a move. The timing is tough, and of course you follow the elections, you saw how it is. So I don't know, it doesn't look like it's a tough decision for him. Do you think he follows through?
I think it's a tough decision. It's not going to be easy, but I believe he will follow through, absolutely.
And take it down.
Yeah, and I think it's recognizing that, when things are tough, you just need to get tougher.
Yeah.
And I think he will do what needs to happen to navigate. We have to, for everybody's sake.
We're starting a subsidy countdown clock at the beginning of June. We're going to flash it up. Yeah, 29 days, 38, 27. We're going to do it. We'll flash it up every day until the decision comes in. Let me quickly ask you about ChatGPT. You're a financial analyst. You go through financials. Are you going to let go of all your staff and let a machine review analyst reports, of company reports?
So, in a word, no. Not least because we operate in Nigeria. Yeah. So you've got to remember that these AI, you need to put the intelligence in it for you to get it out.
Right.
So right now, that one I think is about 750 companies it has.
Yeah, that's right.
So in reality, it will take a little bit of time for it to have the content that we require in this part of the world, but truth is, Reuters, change is inevitable.
Right.
We just, again, it's about, if I look at the common thread between the two stories, it is the fact that change is inevitable. It will keep happening, and we just have to learn to navigate.
Yeah.
It really is that simple.
Okay, have you seen the Will Smith movie, I, Robot? That was all science fiction, but I mean, okay, so I don't know how many years from now, do you see a future where machines, in Japan, the machines are they're checking people into hotels, they're diagnosing, health issues, now they're analyzing financial statements. Could the sci-fi really become true where machines are doing all this stuff?
But if you think about it, machines have been doing a lot of this stuff over a period of time.
Yeah.
Think of all the medical equipment that we use, the MRIs, CT scans. Those are machines doing the diagnosis.
Yeah.
So the question, are we going to have it gulp more and more of human employment? Yes, but it means that we need to divert the human employment to ensure that they are working alongside rather than against, because you can't work against it.
All right. Well, the staff of Alpha African Advisory, they're safe. So
for now. But they too must change. They too must navigate change.
CEO, Alpha African Advisory, Sanyade Okoli, it's always a pleasure having you. Thank you so much for joining us.